Well, welcome once again to the Cow Report. I'm your host, Chuck Lee. We're glad that you could be with us this beautiful sunny afternoon. And of course, it's a Monday, and today is, what is today, Freddie?
Today is Monday.
Monday, April the 17th, right?
Yes.
Okay, of course, with me is my rusty, trusty sidekick, Fred Tell the Truth Stafford. And Fred, I understand you're under a new medication to help you get this cough under control, and
I hope so.
of course, now you got your microphone covered up there by your jacket, Freddie. So
No, it's covered up by my jacket.
there you are. Okay. Let's keep that lapel open there so we can hear Freddie, because Freddie has a lot to say. And now, did Betty help you with the color coordination today?
No.
All right. Well, Freddie, did you have a nice weekend?
I was home for 2 days. Saturday, I spent most of it in bed.
Huh. Well, that's a pretty good place to be. Did you get up and around for Sunday?
Well, I did finally get up, yes.
Okay, well, Fred, you know on this show that we try to stump you
Yeah.
because you've had many years of study and the years of personal history over the years, things of that nature, and so we like to see how much of this you've retained in the last 100 years. So let's see, Fred. April 17th. I'm going to have one here that's going to be tough for you, Fred, to start out the program. We'll see if we can stump Freddie. 1961, April 17th, the U.S. supported an invasion of Cuba. It was badly bungled at the Bay of Pigs. This president suffers a serious embarrassment to his foreign policy. What was that president's name, Fred?
JFK.
That's right. April 17th, 1961, the Bay of Pigs, Fred. Long time ago.
Too bad, too.
And here it is 34 years later. We still got that socialist utopia down there.
I talked with a member of the media who went down there, and he went there before the invasion, and the contacts that he'd been told were supposed to help the Cuban invasion were all arrested and picked up. In other words, somebody in the CIA informed the Castro and so forth what was coming.
Well, you know, Fred, the president made a statement once that he was going to smash the CIA into 1,000 pieces. President Kennedy. And we saw what happened on November 22nd, 1963.
Yep. And the one thing they did, that President Kennedy did with through his brother, the Attorney General, Robert Kennedy, he discontinued the surveillance of the communists in our country and the prosecution of them.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Got rid of that staff they had, and that had been successful in I don't know how many cases they prosecuted.
Well, Fred, a lot of things went wrong during that presidency, and of course, all the scrapping and feuding and fussing with the mafia and with the CIA and all that stuff, it didn't start in January of 1961 when Kennedy came in. It started way back in the Prohibition days when Kennedy's father was cutting deals with the mafia and smuggling booze from Ireland and Canada and getting in fights with the other smugglers over territory, Fred.
Yeah.
There was a few bodies piled up over those years from the 20s to the 60s. And it continued right on up into the assassination of both Kennedy brothers. So, Fred, there are conflicting theories as to exactly what happened, but they made a lot of enemies in that 40-some year period. Well, Fred, you know, money makes the world go around, and it makes Wisconsin go around. And you know something, Fred? It keeps these thousands of taverns open in Wisconsin, too.
It does?
Yep, money and booze. As long as the booze is flowing in the taverns, the money is flowing. And you know something, Fred?
The handling of money is a great responsibility.
The handling of money is a great responsibility, Fred.
Yeah.
And in this state right now, there's a push on, and they're using congressmen out in Washington to help push it through, the lowering of the drinking age, Fred, from 21 down to 19. Now, you're old enough to remember when it was 19, Fred.
I remember when it was 18.
Okay. How many years ago was that?
Well, I know in the 30s, as I was a teenager, it was when it was legalized. It was legalized at 18.
Well, Fred, there's some alarming statistics on the last time we had a drinking age of 19. That was back during the 85-86 period. They compared the statistics. The Department of Transportation of Wisconsin compared the 85-86 statistics with the 92-93 statistics for shows the number of 19 and 20-year-old drinking drivers involved in all types of reportable vehicle accidents, vehicle crashes, and it shows that number has declined dramatically, Fred, when you compare 92-93 with 85-86, just before the 21 law went into effect. The drunken driving accident rate per 1,000 licensed drivers dropped 71% for drivers age 19 and 67% for drivers age 20. So in other words, Fred, there was a drastic and dramatic drop in the number of accidents when they raised the drinking age back up to 21. But of course, you know, Fred, the Tavern League is very powerful in this state. Big political action committee. They pump a lot of money into Senate and Assembly races in the state for a lot of different reasons, but the main reason is to keep the booze flowing, Fred. And of course, you know, your producers of the alcohol, you know who they are. Leinenkugel, Miller, whoever else in the state of Wisconsin produces it. They would love to see the drinking age. Pabst, they would love to see the drinking age lowered back to 19, because then all them 19 and 20-year-olds can sit in the bars and drink up their product and get drunk. More people drinking their product, the higher the bottom line, Fred. It's always the bottom line with the money. That's why the handling of money is very important, Fred. So, Freddie, the report concludes, so this is a report from the Department of Transportation, that the lower alcohol-related crash rates are attributable directly to the increase in the minimum drinking age. In other words, Fred, when they raised it back up to 21, the amount of people getting killed, maimed, injured, and vehicle damage, all that went drastically downward, Fred. So now we have the Tavern League pushing these so-called conservative legislators in Madison into action to now push it back down to 19 again. And it's not because they love those 19-year-olds and the 20-year-olds in the colleges that want to drink on the weekends.
They love the money that they have.
They love the money, and the producers of the alcohol love the money, Fred, but those politicians love those political action committee handouts, the free dinners, the junkets, everything, all the perks that go with being an elected official. But basically, once again, Fred, it boils down to being what? A legalized bribe. If I give you $10,000 in your campaign over a several-year period, Fred, you're going to start thinking my way. At least I hope you are. And you're going to start feeling beholden to me with that kind of money floating around in your pockets. Well, think about it. The Tavern League really likes to spread the dough around. And evidently, one of the Tavern League leaders in this area is planning on running for the Assembly, Fred.
No.
He just so happens to own a tavern himself down on Water Street. And you have a little interesting side bit about that, Fred, about what else he owns.
He owns the place next door to it.
And what's that?
The video store that rents pornographic films.
Huh.
Sounds like he's well qualified today. We elect people who have no morals, so that would mean he'd be qualified there.
Now that's there's a video store next to the tavern he owns, and it so happens to have X-rated video.
Yes.
Now isn't that on the official beware of list that the American Family Association
Yes.
puts out? It's the
Yes.
official warning list of places in Eau Claire that rent video, X-rated videos. I don't know if you got that list on you, Freddie.
No,
but
I
it's
don't have that list.
Quite a
I'm
long
just looking to see if I typed up a letter and I didn't, I thought I brought it with me, but I didn't bring it with me. That's in relation to the, having the
Meet at City Hall National Day of Prayer, which is going to be meet at the county courthouse, 721 Oxford Avenue, Thursday, May 5th, 12:20 to 12:40. And we have Bishop Wantland, who's going to pray with us. Pastor Father John Schultz of the bishop is the Episcopal bishop for this area, and Father Schultz is at St. James Catholic Church. We also will have Pastor John Wells of the Chapel Heights Methodist, and Pastor Mark Schultz of the Peace Lutheran, and Assistant Pastor Paul Bennett of Pentecostal Assembly. They will lead us in prayer. Also praying with us will be, or leading the salute to the colors, Pledge of Allegiance, will be Art Schultz, the past department commander of the VFW, and of the DAV. He's also a member of the VFW and the American Legion. Will be Fritz Zepp, who will pray for the POWs and MIAs.
Well, that's good, Fred. Then isn't there an extra meeting that night then?
I don't know if there is going to be one yet.
It sounds like you got a full 20 minutes worth there on the afternoon.
Yes,
Now that's 12:20 to 12:40.
Thursday, May 4th.
And was there a reason why you dovetailed in from the drinking age right into that? Are you going to pray to get the video
We're
stores
going
out
to
of
pray.
town?
We're going to. The bishop is going to pray about pornography,
Okay.
and the other pastors, Father Schultz will pray about abortion, and the others will pray about the problems that they're going to pray for our legislators, the president and vice president, senators, Congress, etc., and the others will pray for the problems that families have.
All right, Freddie. Well, that's a good job. So that's called Meet at City Hall, but this year's Meet at County Courthouse.
Right. And we're
Because-
doing that because we're getting away from that noise on Farwell Street in front of City Hall.
That's good because it does get noisy down there. And it's nice. Well, now there's construction going on over there at the courthouse, so I hope they don't have the jackhammers running there. Of course, they'll be on lunch break, won't they?
Yeah, it should be on lunch break.
All right, Freddie. Well, have you got any more to say about this drinking age? How do you feel about it?
Well, I think they ought to let it stay as is.
Well, you know, I know at least one assembly person that changed her mind on this, and some claim it lost her the election because she represented a college district, where a big hunk of her area was professors and students. Of course, the students would like nothing more than to have the drinking age lowered, and that could be why there is some activity down on Water Street to lower the drinking age, Fred. It would fill those bars back up again.
Well, those bars don't need any filling really. They get their customers.
Well, you know, Fred, in some states there's a law that forces a bartender to get what's called dram shop insurance.
Yes.
If that bartender knowingly lets somebody leave that bar after serving them enough drinks to make them legally drunk, then letting that person leave, knowing that he's going to go out and get in a car and drive it, that bartender can be held personally responsible.
Yes.
Of course, now the Tavern League and some of their minions in the assembly, they don't want to see any law like that in this state, Fred.
Well, maybe it ought to be passed to make sure that they're not going to be making the customers, especially the students, drunkards.
Well, you know, some of these assembly people speak with forked tongues, Freddie. They come up here and claim to be conservatives, and you cut them open, and they're liberals,
Mm-hmm.
pushing the destruction of our youth by allowing alcohol onto the market, lowering the age a couple more years, and once you lower it to 19, then they'll say, well, these 16, 17, and 8-year-olds or 18-year-olds are coming in and drinking, we might as well lower it to 16. That's why in the wisdom of Ronald Reagan, he said, let's have it age 21 nationwide. And let's tie some funding to it so that the states get the message that kids 19 and 20 can't hold their liquor, Freddie. And the statistics are black and white right from the Department of Transportation, and they can't be dispelled or proven wrong, Freddie. The number of accidents dropped 71% for 19-year-olds, Freddie,
Mm-hmm.
and 67% for 20-year-olds. In other words, we didn't have all them drunk kids on the roads on weekends, Freddie, causing death and destruction and misery for thousands of people. All right, Freddie, well, we're going to take a call here because there's some people eagerly waiting to talk to us. Then we want to get back to see if we can stump you on whose funeral services were held on April 19th in 1865. See if you can remember that. And we'll see if we can get a call in here.
Whoa, cool.
Whoops. See if we can get a call in here, Freddie. Line 1. Go ahead, caller. You're on the air.
Hey, Chuck, all my buddies are sitting around here and watching you guys again. Hey, everybody say hi. Hey, Chuck.
Hi, how you doing?
We're doing all right. What's up with the glove today?
Well, this is a memoriam of Michael Jackson and O.J. Simpson. They both have a thing about gloves, so, you know, neither one of them have been proven guilty yet, so many months ago I said I would wear a glove in respect for them until they're both proven innocent or guilty. And both cases are still up in the air, and ironically, both are black men, and both are tied up in cases involving gloves. So,
That's great.
matter of fact, this was found out there at the site back when I was out there June 13th, Freddie. Hanging around out there at the Simpson area, and I came across this glove dangling in the bushes there.
Mm-hmm.
And I brought it back with me, Fred. It looked like a pretty good glove.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's up with that sign you got downtown? Are you ever take that down or what?
Where's that at now?
Lee for Congress, somewhere on Barstow Street.
Oh, yeah.
Ah, yeah, you forgot, boys. Still there.
Yeah, there's always one or two that you forget about.
Oh, he's still preparing to run a year and a half from now.
I think he should make you his running partner there, Fred.
No,
I guarantee you.
No.
I guarantee you the Tavern League won't be slipping any money to me. They got their slush funds, but it's already taken.
Fred wants all that PAC money.
Now, where you got a group of people? Are you on a campus or what?
Oh, just hanging out at a home
All right.
campus.
Uh-huh. Well, what's the question today?
I thought I just gave it to you. I guess that's it. We're done.
All right. Well, thanks
Bye
a lot.
now.
Thanks a lot for viewing, and aren't you glad to see Freddie back in the?
Everybody say bye to Fred. Bye, Fred.
Bye. Hello.
Oh, that was goodbye. See ya.
All right. Thanks. Well, Fred, see, you got your fans out there.
Yeah.
I know you have to stay home sometimes to keep away from signing autographs and stuff, but
Oh,
you
baloney.
should get out more at the malls there, riding around the campus and stuff. I bet anything you'd be swamped if you went out there on the university campus and just hung around.
I don't think so.
Went to the Union out there.
They're more intelligent than that.
All right, Freddie. You know, you look colorful today
And
with that hat.
That's President Lincoln.
Okay, funeral services for President Lincoln are performed in the White House, 1865, Fred, April 19th.
Right.
And how ironic it was, Fred. two great presidents, President of the Confederacy and the President of the United States, both dead by the end of the war. Isn't that ironic?
Mm-hmm.
And you know where they got the term, your name is mud? That term is carried over from 1865 to 1995, 130 years. My name's going to be Mud. Well, we'll see if anyone out there remembers how that phrase came into existence.
Okay.
Freddie's name is going to be Mud.
No.
And that saying has been going on for 130 years, Fred. We'll see if anyone remembers why. Okay, we'll get this thing going here, Freddie. All right. Go ahead, caller. You're on the air.
Hi, I wanted to know if you're for or against having the drinking age like 18 or something.
Or something.
Well, yeah, like, are you in support of having the age like 18, or do you want it to be 21 like it is?
Well, me personally, I would like to see it stay at age 21, preferably because of the death, destruction, heartache, the mothers and the fathers that have seen their sons and daughters lowered into the graves, just because of this booze being freer and more freely available. And we see even the 21-year-olds can't handle it, Fred. We've seen the death of a bright young college student right here in Eau Claire that decided that his birthday was the time to see how many drinks he could drink, and the next day they found his cold, lifeless body in bed. He had alcohol poisoning. He was dead. That's exactly what alcohol is. It's a poison, and it'll kill you. It causes death, destruction. Prisons, large proportion of the people in prisons committed their crimes on alcohol.
Myself, I'm under the age of 18, so I don't know. I guess in the back of my mind, I've sort of like waited to like drive and stuff because I'm going to be driving soon. So, and I was thinking like about drinking and stuff, how bad it could be, you know, because I could like get in an accident because I'm a new driver. So, myself, I'm sort of for it at age 21.
Well, the statistics are against you, and that's why the insurance companies hit the young kids. They've got them statistics in black and white right there, Freddie.
I know.
They know exactly how many of you are going to kill yourself, how many of you are going to end up in wheelchairs, how many are going to kill the person in the other car, how many are going to kill or maim the person sitting next to them or in the back seat. They know it. They've studied it. They got it down pat. They know that 19 and 20-year-olds are going to cause death and destruction on the highways of Wisconsin.
Well, still, you know, if you're under the age of 21, I'm sure there's people around here who can, like, get it, like alcohol if they want it.
They can get heroin, too, but that doesn't mean we have to allow people to start using heroin down on Water Street. I guarantee you, if heroin was legal, we'd have a heroin lobby just like we have a tavern league lobby.
Well, I guess that's about it for me.
Okay, well, thanks for calling in, and continue to
I know.
watch, because this is the only place on television where you do get the truth. We don't mess around with all that fluff, Fred.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you got today for us, Freddie? I know
I've got several things. Got an article here in the New American magazine that's published over there in Appleton, and it's entitled Beltway Bandidos. And during a February 21st celebration of the Mexican bailout agreement by Treasury Secretary Robert Rubin, knotting the U.S. dollar even more tightly with the plummeting peso, Secretary of State Warren Christopher claimed, "We are bringing this crisis to a close." Since then, however, loan interest rates in Mexico have gone to over 80%. Existing bad debts are becoming more difficult to repay. Mexico's sales taxes, gas taxes have been up, and 3 national banks have been seized by Mexico's national government. The peso, which was worth almost 29 cents before the devaluation in December, by mid-March had slumped to a bit over 14 cents.
Well, you know, Fred, that's amazing how that peso just continues to slide, and you know, it's pulling down the Canadian dollar and the American dollar with it. You know, all you got to do is compare our dollar's worth to the Japanese yen, and you'll see that we're in deep trouble. Now, we don't notice it back here in the Western Hemisphere, in the Americas, because all three currencies are dropping: the Canadian, the American, and the Mexican.
That's true.
But people overseas notice it, Freddie. Now, you know, Fred, there's a big deal coming down the pike, and you probably heard Newt Gingrich talk about it over the weekend. They're trying to figure out what to do with the 600,000 people that live in Washington, D.C. They don't have the right to vote because they live in the District of Columbia. It's a federal district. I think it's something like 10 square miles was the original plan for it. And it was one of the original United States territories, like Guam, and well, Guam and them came later, but the District of Columbia is a territory of the federal government. So, what are they going to do about it, Freddie? Somebody took it to the United Nations.
Oh, who did that? Jesse Jackson?
Okay, UN Human Rights Committee will decide whether U.S. Constitution's prohibition of D.C. statehood is in conflict with America's treaty obligations. So now the United Nations is sticking their nose in sovereign issues of this country.
Yes.
Reminding us once again that it is more dangerous to have had a George Bush in the White House than even a Bill Clinton. The Washington Post reports that under the terms of the International Covenant of Civil and Political Rights, ratified in 1992 at the urging of President George Bush, the United States of America is now obliged to justify the limited voting status of District of Columbia residents before a key United Nations Human Rights Committee, marking the first time the issue of D.C. representation has come up before the UN.
Does it say who brought it up?
Let's see here, Freddie. Well, it's quite a long article, and I have to read quite a bit of it. But Newt over the weekend says that D.C. should be ceded back to Maryland. It should be made a congressional district in Maryland so that they can vote for the 2 senators in Maryland, and they'd have their own voting representative in Washington.
Yeah.
Now, that's where it came from to begin with. It was carved out of Maryland, so that's where it has to go back to. And that's the end of that story, Fred.
Yes.
The United Nations can keep their nose out of it.
Right.
All right. Let's see what we can get here, Fred. And you know something, Fred? I'm glad we have a studio audience today. Let's see how they agree with this issue. Hopefully they'll agree with us. They agree with us on it, Fred. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see if we can get a caller on that. Go ahead, caller. You're on the air.
Oh, I know why that expression, your name is Mud, came from.
The what?
I know where that expression, your name is Mud, came from.
You do?
Mm-hmm.
Where at?
Because after Booth fell out, he fell out the window at the Forbes Theater. He broke his leg, and then when he escaped, someone had to fix his leg, and it was a doctor whose last name was Mud. And after that expression, because he saved his life.
That's right, and Dr. Mudd ended up going to a mosquito-infested swamp-infested federal prison, and ended up saving a lot of lives of people that were getting malaria or cholera or whatever the mosquitoes were passing. Saved a lot of lives down there, and was later his sentence commuted, Fred, and he was let go back home. And that's where they get the phrase, your name's Mudd, Fred. Because Dr. Mudd,
Yeah.
his oath says that he should help people that are sick or injured. John Wilkes Booth came to him, he set his leg and sent him on his way, and he ended up doing some federal prison time, and his career was destroyed after that, Freddie.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thanks a lot, caller, and for getting that right, we're going to give you an issue of the Christian American April issue, and if you want to pick that up down here at Public Access, the hours are 10 to 5, Monday through Friday, or thereabouts, and you can pick up the latest issue of the Christian American.
Thanks a lot.
Do you have any question today for Freddie or I?
No, not really.
All right, well, thanks for calling in with that right answer, Fred.
Okay, bye.
Isn't it good that we have people out there that know their history, Fred?
Mm-hmm.
And along those lines, Freddie, we're going to see now, you've been hitting pretty good today. You've gotten everything right so far. Let's see if you know this one, Fred. This was April 18th. The year was 1942. After a courageous and dangerous launching from an aircraft carrier, this Major General leads the first bombing raid against Tokyo in World War II. The successful raid is a major morale boost to the American public. The date was April 18, 1942. Fred, who was that Major General?
Jimmy Dumore.
Jimmy Doolittle. You're right, Freddie. I thought you'd remember that one. Jimmy Doolittle. And that was kind of lifted the spirits of the American people at that time, Fred. They were right in the depths of World War II.
Yes,
Matter of fact, they'd only been in the war about a year by then, hadn't they?
1942. You know, the war began with the attack on Pearl Harbor. Although we had been actually engaged in seeking out and sinking submarines of the Germans in the Atlantic, starting sometime around the summer.
Mm-hmm.
I think it started maybe in May. First we were trailing them, and then later we actively depth charged them.
Now, submarines were sighted off the Alaskan coast, around Hawaii, also in New York Harbor during the war, weren't they?
Well, you know, I think one was got into New York Harbor, and I was on the lighthouse at West Bank, which is below Staten Island and off in between Staten Island and Coney Island, and one was there one night. But of course, when they got there looking for it, it had disappeared.
Yep. Well, that goes to show you, Freddie. I'm surprised the Germans probably did leave.
And that was in 42.
I'm sure they got some commandos into this country for sabotage. We probably didn't have much of it, but I imagine that was all considered top secret then, and the American public didn't hear too much.
Well, they did get some. They landed some on Long Island, and they were captured.
Okay, Freddie, we're going to take a call here in line 2 to see what's happening out there in TV land. Of course, we're coming to you from the beautiful downtown L.E. Phillips Memorial Library and Taco Stand. And go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
I have a question for Fred.
All right. He's right here, eagerly awaiting your question.
Fred, are you married?
You bet.
Do you think your wife would mind if we went out?
I think she would.
Hey, this is another person, in case you couldn't tell.
All right.
It's nice to see that you got some pills for your cough.
Yes.
Yes, he's got one in his mouth right now. That's why his speech
Cough
is
drop.
a little bit garbled there.
Okay, well, that's nice you got that fixed. I hate to see a nice person like Fred coughing all the time on a good show.
Thank you.
Yeah. Do you have a question today, caller?
Yeah, I was wondering about that Gulf War thing, Gulf War. Actually, never mind. I just wanted to know about his cough, how he's doing.
Okay. All right. Thanks for calling in.
Yeah.
You know, something people, and I noticed in the Leader Telegram, there were some articles about President Franklin Delano Roosevelt. It doesn't tell you that they had broke the code, the Japanese code, and they knew they were coming in advance. And actually, they sacrificed those who were killed at Pearl Harbor. They sent them a commercial telegram, which was received about the attack had already started when it was received in Hawaii. And they had a scrambler telephone on the desk in the communication center, the Navy in Washington, D.C., as well as at Naval Headquarters in Pearl Harbor.
Well, I know what you mean, Freddie, and that there has been some speculation that Roosevelt, at the behest of the big Eastern bankers, got us into the war. And, of course, there was bankers on the Japanese and German side that just loved the situation, too. And some of these bankers actually ended up financing both ends of the war. It's a terrible situation, Fred, when you got a bank or a group of banks that are financing the war machine for your enemy as well as your friend.
Well, what did you think about McNamara's book? on the Vietnam War.
Robert Strange McNamara. I
Yeah,
think his middle name is Strange.
he certainly was strange.
Well, I haven't read the book, Freddie, but as we well know, we've been hearing the stories now over the past few years. Right during the conflicts, if a gasoline tanker truck had to get through to the north, the Americans were requested to stop shooting so that the tanker could get through from the south into the north. Now, what kind of war is that? We're supplying the enemy with fuel.
Well, I talked with a general who was over in Vietnam for a while, and a couple of colonels. And they said that they could have won that war in 6 weeks had they been allowed to. They weren't allowed to bomb what needed to be bombed there and put them out of business. They weren't. They were allowed to bomb 14 out of 90-some targets.
Well, Fred, you know the
When
bottom...
you fight a war, you fight it to win. You don't fight it to be a holding pattern.
Unless you can control the manufacture and the sale and the loans of money and everything involved in fighting a war. Right? If you can control that war for a long period of time, and in this case, the United States was in there for over 20 years in one form or another. We're still involved over there. But if you can control the armaments that are built and shipped in there and then destroyed by all the destruction and the bodies and everything, I mean, you can create quite a money machine there, Fred.
Yeah, but it doesn't make any sense to be able to win and keep America from winning the war.
It does if you're a banker or somebody that's got a big loan on some of that equipment that's being built. You know, some of the factories back here are running flat out, 24 hours a day making bullets and stuff for that war. It's unfortunate we didn't win it, Fred.
No,
And it messed up.
we're still paying for it. We turned over China to the communists, Mao Zedong and Company.
1949.
Ever since then, we have been losing because we lost there and we lost in Korea, we lost here.
Well, getting back to your question, Freddie, I don't know what to think about McNamara. If he had a bunch of information, why is he waiting 25 years to inform us about it? Why didn't he tell the people in power back 25 years ago and push the war one way or the other? Get on with it or get out of there. Cost thousands of lives while he was dilly-dallying around.
And that was unfortunate because those men who were in there were really fighting a ruthless enemy, and some of them still have repercussions, post-traumatic stress, as a result of what they went through.
Well, Fred, I personally remember a young man that went over there, married just before he went over, lost both of his legs, and he came back in a wheelchair. He couldn't handle it. He ended up committing suicide, and his family was destroyed over it, all for a war that we didn't want to win. It was a terrible situation, Fred. A lot of people's lives were destroyed and were broken on that. And like you say, we're still feeling the repercussions. You see them in the veterans hospitals. You see them in the homeless veterans. You see it in the crime rates amongst veterans. You see it in the mental illness amongst veterans.
Yes.
Serious problem. All right, Freddie, we better take a call here. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Hi, I would like to know what you think of the drug intake of young consumers today.
The drug intake of young consumers.
Yes, sir.
What drugs in particular?
Pot, heroin, and cocaine.
Let me ask you something. How old are you?
I am 14 years old, and I'm very concerned about my friends.
14 years old.
Yes.
Where do you go to school at? You don't have to give your name or anything. I'm just want to get a...
North High School.
North?
Yes.
Now, you personally, since nobody knows who you are, what have you seen in the way of drugs at North?
Well, I've seen a lot of teachers getting beat up because kids are flipping out. I've seen children having various types of cancer coming from the drugs and a lot of sicknesses and deaths.
Do you know specifically what kind of drugs are going around up at North?
Marijuana, cocaine mainly.
Has any heroin shown up yet?
Yes.
Well, you know that's coming right from Adolf Clinton's buddy over there in Russia. The Russian mafia is bringing that in.
Yes, I know.
But you say cancer from the drugs they're using. What did you mean by that?
Well, a lot of people already have problems, you know, that I know of, and they're just making it worse for themselves, and they're stupid.
And you said teachers are being beat up by students that are flipping out?
Yes.
What are they flipping out on?
Huh?
What are they flipping out on?
Cocaine. You get so hyper and stuff that it's just it does something to the mind, and it causes a reflex in the brain to lash out at someone. I did studies on it.
Okay, as far as your observations, do you think the anti-drug programs up there are working or not?
No. People are just gonna not listen. They're very very persistent that they think that they're grown up to handle it. I don't think so.
So what age groups are you talking about as far as the drug?
Mine.
Pardon?
Mine.
14, 15,
Yes.
16, 17, 18?
Younger too.
How young?
About the age of 10 to 11.
In Eau Claire?
Yes.
Well, you know, one thing about it, your body physically has not grown up yet, and you can cause permanent problems and physical problems from the use of some of these drugs while your body is still developing, both physically and mentally.
Yes, sir, it can.
Something, I don't know if you know about it, but I knew a young man who had a drug problem, and he died at age 34. He was addicted to alcohol and to any of the street drugs he could get a hold of. He left this world at age 34.
That's pretty young, I tell you.
Right.
Yep, well, you know, kids think that they're immortal, Fred. And at one time in the history of the world, we were immortal, but no longer. We have a mortal life. We have a beginning and end, alpha and omega. And these drugs out there will kill you.
Yeah.
And
People don't realize it.
if they don't kill you, they'll make you mentally retarded or mentally ill. And they can stunt your physical growth. They can cause brain damage,
If
liver
you have
damage.
a child,
Pardon?
if you have children, you'd understand where some of my friends do, and they are on drugs, and I'm just wondering how that child's going to come out, because that child is either going to come out mentally retarded or physically impaired.
Well, it's unfortunate. What would you suggest grown-ups do to, since you're a teenager, how would you, if you were, say, my age and you had the power to do something about the drug problem, what would you do?
Well, personally, I think anybody has the power to do something. It's just they should know how to do it. They got to get a hold of somebody to help that person if they're willing to get help. But you know, there's not many people that want help with it, and that's where I run into a problem.
That's very true. It's just like the alcoholic. The alcoholic has a problem, too. He's the last one to admit it.
Yeah.
Fred, I've seen 18-year-old alcoholics with liver damage in detox centers. So it's, you don't have to be 50 to have liver or brain damage from alcohol. You can do it in your teens. Same with some of these other drugs. Well, I want to thank you for calling in. I was going to ask you one other thing. What do you think of all this gang hype? Is there that much gang activity going on at North?
Oh yes, there's plenty of that, and I'd like to say something. There's a lot of kids getting hurt because of gangs. There's a lot of people getting hurt because you know they threaten you and stuff. It's very sickening nowadays. The way people can get away with things now.
So what kind of activity are you seeing? How about weapons?
Weaponry, guns, 38s, magnums, knives, stabbing weapons, I can't even hardly go to Moulton's anymore because of all the people bringing weapons in there, and very public places like that. There's a lot of weaponry coming around.
Do they have metal detectors in North yet?
Yes,
Every student has to go through there in the morning?
yes.
How do they get the weapons past there?
They hide them. They only go waist high, the metal detectors, so they can hide them in their hats and in their bandanas. Very sick.
Well, hopefully if somebody's listening from North High School or law enforcement that will think about that. Don't they have a wand one that they can wave around?
I have no idea.
There is a handheld metal detector that you can scan over the hat and everywhere. You might have to use one of those there. Well, thanks a lot for calling in, caller. We appreciate your
Thank you for listening.
your input.
Bye.
Okay, bye. Well, Fred, you know, over the weekend in the Lear Telegram, there was a warning that there's a white gang that's from Chicago that's moving into the Eau Claire area and causing problems. And they say this could be the biggest gang and cause the most trouble of any of them. I think they either said there was age 13 to 17 or there was 13 to 17 members, one or the other, but doesn't sound good, and hopefully the law enforcement are on top of this. Possibly they can start reevaluating their metal detectors and see if they can get the ones that are hidden in the hats and stuff. Okay, Freddie, we got another call coming up here. If we can get we had Roy just come in here and tell us there was a technical difficulty, and so hopefully we'll get that straightened out here in a minute. That must have been Roy now going in the other room, Fred. Okay. We better take another call here, but what did you have there first, Fred? I know you have
I got something on the Brady law in Idaho. Early February, Idaho Bureau of Criminal Identification announced that an average of 25 persons per week were kept from buying handguns in Idaho last year by the federal Brady waiting period law. In all, 1,078 persons were denied purchases at a gun dealership. But according to February 6th Associated Press dispatch, despite the drop in sales, police say they have seen no decline in the number of crimes committed with handguns.
Huh.
Even had a Twin Falls County Sheriff, Sergeant Bill McDaniel, told AP that I've seen no evidence that the Brady law works. It just deters criminals from going to licensed gun dealers, but that doesn't stop them from buying guns on the street or from a private person.
Well, you know, a lot of sheriffs have said they're not going to enforce the Brady bill.
Mm.
Of course, I'm sure they're getting some heat over it. Okay, Freddie, I got a real serious question to ask you here, but first we're going to take a call. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Yeah, I'm from Minnesota originally. I just moved here into Wisconsin, and I was wondering what this whole PGH hormone thing was all about. Is it any kind of worry or what?
You mean you didn't have that over there in Minnesota?
Not that I knew of. Is it a big problem or what?
Well, it's Monsanto had a kind of a legal slush fund, and they spread the money around pretty thick to state and federal elected officials to allow them to sell BGH, RBGH, the chemical, in the state of Wisconsin. And it's a chemical that's injected into the cow's bloodstream, and it causes the cow to produce more milk, but it also causes some side effects, and so people were worried about ending up with this RBGH side effects and the added risks of more antibiotics in the milk and other problems. And so it's been been tossed back and forth to and fro whether it's good or bad for you. And the consensus right now is that most farmers in Wisconsin are refusing to use it on their cows, even though Monsanto has used some off-color tactics and pressure to get certain farmers to, as you would think, kowtow to the Monsanto to use it as an example to other farmers that there's nothing wrong with it. But some of your big corporate farms are using it because they can continue, if the price goes down, they can just produce more milk and make up the difference. But the small farmers It's pretty much, it's causing problems with the small farmers. They're kind of caught between a rock and a hard place. Should I produce more milk because the price is down, or should I continue to have a quality product and not produce as much? So it's caused a lot of problems for farmers in Wisconsin, especially the family farmers. And the verdict is still out on it, but a lot of people are saying we don't want that stuff in our milk.
And if you want to buy BGH-free milk, buy Schroeder's.
Well, there's several brands now, Fred, that are BGH-free: cottage cheese, cheeses, milk, any milk products. So you have the choice to not purchase that, and hopefully Monsanto will eventually pull the product off the market. We have too much milk now. We don't need more surplus of milk, especially for the small farmers that need a higher price for their milk per hundredweight.
So you said something about the producers making some, like, trying to coerce the guys into using their product. What kind of stuff would they do?
Well, there have been certain farmers that have been given money. They've been given propaganda videos. They've been asked to meet with other farmers and try and, subtly tell them that, hey, why don't you get with the program here? Let's get into the 1990s here and get with this new chemical. It's just another product to help you increase your milk production. But the scientists and some of the environmental groups are saying that it's not good for you or the cow. And they're seeing some increases in cows dying or having inflammations and the production of more pus in their udders, and so it's caused some problems. So it has been a hard sell, but a lot of farmers are saying we don't want any part of it.
Right, thank you.
Okay. All right, Freddie, here's what I was going to ask you. Now, I know you were back in New York in 1923, April 18th.
Yeah.
You remember the day the Yankee Stadium opened?
Quite frankly, I don't.
The first game is played in the new Yankee Stadium, April 18th, 1923. What famous hitter hit a home run in the first game to please the crowd?
Probably Babe Ruth.
That's right. The Babe himself, Fred. When the push came to shove, he walked up to the plate and hit a home run. Opening day. All right, Freddie, let's get some... that's one final cow there that didn't get out of the studio in time, Fred. Let's get some information here from the Concerned Women for America.
Yes.
I don't know if you got this letter to mail.
No, I don't.
Crazy person!
Okay, Fred, we'll get that person off the line there. All right. The Clinton administration has been ordering all federal workers to attend intensive 3-hour sessions which are designed to force people to accept and embrace the homosexual lifestyle as normal and acceptable. This is a Clinton edict, Fred, that all federal workers must attend these workshops. This is being done under the guise of AIDS education. The president mandated this employee training through his federal workplace AIDS education initiative. Because you must know how this administration is squandering your hard-earned tax dollars, here's the gist of what is happening. We are projecting that this mandated program is costing us as taxpayers over $300 million in lost employee time to attend the seminars. Now, this projection is from Concerned Women for America, that $300 million is lost, plus the hiring of consultants to administer it and for program materials. Christian federal workers are being made to feel like outcasts. The training manuals, these are the training manuals that Clinton approved, label Christians as potential troublemakers. They are singled out for their religious values and prejudices. The homosexual lifestyle is blatantly and openly promoted. The Agriculture Department, which Representative Steve Gunderson has a big say-so in, has even redefined family to include gay men living together.
Mm-hmm.
So, Fred, they're getting this pro-homosexual propaganda because the White House, President Clinton and his wife are surrounded by homosexual staff people.
Yeah, well, there's something here. In '93, some 6 months after the flapjaw with Congress, Pentagon, the Lavenders lobby, the religious right, the Clinton administration unbosomed its masterpiece of escape and evasion known as Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy toward homosexuals in the armed forces. Nothing such more was heard of the policy until a few weeks ago, and a federal judge took 10 minutes to rip it up and pitch it out.
Okay, Fred. Well, another thing that they're being taught at these seminar discussions and materials graphically discuss masturbation, sex massages, how best to clean needles for illegal drug use,
It's great.
and where children and teenagers should go for homosexual counseling. So if your 14-year-old has a problem, doesn't know, what's up or down, most teenagers don't, then you can just send them off to a homosexual counselor. They'll straighten them up one way or the other.
Going to make a homosexual out of them.
Can you imagine being required to sit through an AIDS training course that openly promoted and condoned homosexual conduct? Can you believe the government is saying that two men living together and having sex are as much a family as you, your spouse, and your children? And what about God-honoring men and women being branded as troublemakers because of their Christian beliefs and pro-family values?
Well,
That's the three questions
we,
they ask.
we ought to have a ruling that President Clinton have to sit by and listen to what happens to people who are homosexuals and so forth.
Freddie, we better take another call here. We're running out of time. We only got about 3 minutes left. Okay, we'll take this call now, Freddie. Go ahead, caller. You're on the air.
Hi, I happen to be a senior at North High School, and I usually don't make calls to your show, but I watch it, but you got inaccurate information. First of all, there's no cocaine and heroin going around because nobody can afford it. Definitely some marijuana. Yeah, she was right. Gang activity, our halls, it's not like a gauntlet or anything. You can walk safely and nobody's going to stab you or anything. Maybe a few years ago it was a little bit of an issue with Asian gangs and their blue bandanas, but that kind of died off. We have a pretty safe environment at North. There's no metal detectors because I've never been beeped for my jackknife every single morning when I walk through school. It's a common tool and nothing's ever gone off, and there's nobody standing there ready to apprehend you.
You don't have kind of a round arch that you walk through for a metal detector?
We have a door that leads to the hallway, and the hallway that leads to your locker, and business as usual. So that's just some inaccurate information. I mean, imagine how much cocaine costs for using it once. It's got to be a couple $100. You have to be pretty much a dealer to be able to afford to use something like that.
Well, heroin, I think it's $500 a gram right now.
Well, when you talk about that, and this man that I mentioned before died, he had been expelled from North or suspended. And incidentally, he had 3 brothers that also were suspended from North. So all 3 of them were into the drugs.
Well, thanks a lot for calling us and giving us the other side of the story, caller. Okay, Freddie, well, I think it's about that time again where we're getting down to the end. And, Freddie, it's been...
God bless you. God bless you.
It might be an elephant, Freddie.
Well, God bless him anyway.
Well, Freddie, I think we're going to have to call it quits here. We've got about, according to my clock, about 10 seconds left. So we want to thank you all for tuning in once again to the Kyle Report. We appreciate your support, and we'll see you again right here on the Kyle Report. I've been your host, Chuck Lee. With me is Fred Stafford, Roy Rogers Hoff, Senior Director, and Joel Dupre from Public Access Helps. And we'll see you again on the Kyle Report next Monday. Adios.